Hi, it's Miss Chambers. If you're going to be sewing with me, you're going to need to know a few basic hand stitches. Today we're going to learn a whip stitch, a locking whip stitch, and a back stitch. Let's get started. First up, we have the whip stitch. I've got my needle threaded and I've got my thread knotted at the end to do a whip stitch. This is probably the simplest of all stitches. I'm going to start behind my fabric and poke up through. My magic measurement is a 1/4 inch or 5 millimeters. It's 1/2 centimeter. I want to be about 1/2 centimeter from the edge, the top edge of the fabric, and about 1/2 centimeter from my last stitch when I repeat that action again. I'm going to continue doing that all the way along the row here. That is all there is to a whip stitch. Keep poking from the same direction and pulling through. When you're done, you should have a nice row of diagonal lines. To tie this off, I'm going to simply pick up a little sliver of fabric, do that 3 times, and then cut it off. And there it is. And you can see how that holds the 2 pieces of fabric together. Next, I want to show you the back stitch. Back stitch is called back stitch because at some point we go backwards in it. So again, I'm going to use that 1/2 centimeter, 5 millimeter, 1/4 inch measurement as my magic measurement and put my needle back down. This time I didn't go around the fabric. Instead, I went back down on the same side I came up, and for back stitch, I'm going to do that every time. Now, because my thread is coming out of the back, I'm going to come back up from the back, but I'm going to come back up in the middle of my first stitch. Now, because my thread is in front of my fabric, I'm going to go down from the front. Now that I've made that stitch, and I come back up the midpoint of that last stitch. And then back down again, 1/2 centimeter away, back up at the midpoint, and I continue that way all the way along. And there you have it. When you're done, it should be a fairly straight line. Not sure what happened here. I got thinking about other things. To finish it off, same as I did for the whip stitch, I'm going to just pick up a little sliver of fabric and go through it 3 times and cut it off. Now that you've got your basic whip stitch and your basic back stitch, I'm going to show you the variations we're going to use on our moccasins. To make the gathers in the toe of our moccasins, we need to squeeze in more fabric than the fabric that we're meeting up here. I'm going to demonstrate on here where I've got a short piece and a long piece of fabric. I'm going to start by doing a whip stitch on the spot about 3 times so that it's nice and secure. Again, I'm using that 5 millimeter measurement to know how deep my stitches need to be and how far apart. Now, I need to ease this long edge in to this short fabric. So to do that, I push up a little bubble of fabric and I finish my whip stitch on the other side of it. After I've done that, I'm going to secure it with a whip stitch on the spot. So I call this the locking whip stitch. So it's, instead of moving along 5 millimeters every time, I move 5 millimeters, then I do 1 on the spot. Then I move 5 millimeters, then I do 1 on the spot. Here's my second little bubble I'm pushing up. I'm going to secure that with a whip stitch. And then I'm going to lock it in place with a whip stitch on the spot. And I'm going to keep going to the end of the line like that. Okay, I've finished and I've tied it off, and you can see the result now. I've got a flat section, which was my shorter piece, and I've got this side that's all gathered. When I'm making the toe of my moccasin, you can see how that will work. Okay, let's have a good look at this. You can see there's a lot of ridges still, and also a whip stitch can expose threads and kind of pull apart. So if you're picky like I am, you'll do a back stitch on top of your whip stitch. Okay, I'm going to stop here and tell you why I'm doing a back stitch over my whip stitch. You can compare here these large pleated ridges with this flatter look. So the reason we go back with the back stitch is to really flatten those gathers so that when we turn it to the outside, we have a nicer shape for our toe and not such big pleats. You can leave the big pleats if you like. I just prefer this look. If you've been following my videos in the Moccasin Making Getting Started playlist, congrats, you've made it to the end of this playlist and graduated onto beading. Check out my beading videos. Those of you who found your way here for other reasons, please hit subscribe and check out my other videos.